Hey gang, before we get into the show, I wanted to share this really cool Kickstarter with you. It's from the company Flight of Harmony. They have this module they're making called the FACEHUGGER, which is an 8-stage, all-analog, chainable, addressable, non-linear function generator. The FACEHUGGER can be an arpeggiator, CV sequencer, burst generator, envelope generator, LFO, and much more. They can also be connected in series for longer sequences and in parallel for making chords. Multiple expansion panels are also in development for even wider functionality. Here's the rub. The Kickstarter runs until April 22nd, and it is at 53% as of April 3rd. So, I got the link in the show description. Please head to the Kickstarter page and help this amazing looking module become a reality. Once again, that is the FACEHUGGER by Flight of Harmony. Link in the show description. Let's get into the show.
This week's episode of Popular Modcast is brought to you by The Summit, Novation's flagship 2-part 16-voice polyphonic synthesizer. Summit's digital new Oxford oscillators offer subtractive, FM, and wavetable synthesis, and feed into genuine analog dual filters, distortion, and VCAs. The multi-timbral engine enables merging and combining of 2 complete and independent patches, while up to 16 simultaneous voices deliver enough harmonic depth for even the richest paths. And you guessed it, this patch playing below my voice right now was made on my Novation Summit. If you want to learn more, click the link in the show description.
Hello and welcome back to Popular Modcast. My name is Tim Held. I don't know that person's name, but their car is loud. This week, we have Doug and Max from Hausu Mountain on the show. I became a fan of Hausu Mountain before I even got into modular. It was right when I was getting into electronic music, so it's been quite a while. And I'm just, really excited to share this with you. I was very excited to talk with them. They're great dudes, funny, affable, and we kind of have a similar talk as the one that I had with Andrew from Beacon Sound. So if you're out there and you're wondering, like, how do you get on a label and how do you approach labels and stuff, we're going to cover some of that stuff today. But before we get into that, some quick housekeeping and some business. I haven't been keeping on top of the Patreon bonus episodes. It's been hard to find the time, and I've had some technical difficulties and whatnot. So I'm going to be just releasing a batch of those soon. But I've also just been kind of including the Patreon bonus portion of the show in the regular show because... yeah, and I haven't acknowledged that, so it seems like I'm forgetting to edit it out. I should acknowledge it. And I should be professional by now, because PodMod turned 5 this month. Actually, technically, it turned 5 on March 25th, and I'm recording this on March 31st. And I should have marked that ceremonious occasion somehow. I guess I am right now. So if you've been here since the beginning, thank you. If you're new, welcome. You've got a lot of episodes to catch up on. I want to say thank you to everybody who has signed up for the Patreon, and also congratulations to all of the Patreon subscribers who were able to get to my post quick enough to claim some of the stuff that I was giving away. It's funny to talk about that right now because I actually haven't done that, but by the time this episode is out, I will have done it. So I can't congratulate you personally right now, but you know who you are, so congrats. I also want to take a moment to shout out After Later Audio and thank them for their continued support of Popular Modcast. If you have any questions about their original designs or the Mutable Instruments Classic line, head over to afterlateraudio.com, link in the show description. I also want to take a minute to say thank you to Bastel and Casper for sending me the Aikido. It is an amazing module, VCA mixer with side chaining capabilities and envelope generation. And they have the spectral envelope, which actually, you can use your bass, your mids, or your treble. So it creates an envelope off of whatever frequency range that you select. So that is really, really cool. And I did mention this last week, but I thought I would throw another shout out to Waveform Magazine. They have a new issue out. I almost said episode. If you're not subscribed, again, link in the show description. A lot of cool features in there. I'm just so stoked that Ellison and the team are still hard at work on this amazing print publication that brings us interviews and reviews of gear and music revolving around our community. So once again, go check that out. And I'm very excited to have you guys on. Doug and Max from Hausu Mountain.
Hey, what's up? Cheers.
Hello. Thank you for having us today.
Absolutely. I got to warn you, I did mention before we started recording that I'm a little out of sorts today. And I usually don't like to talk about this kind of thing, but it also doesn't happen often. But I'm a little hungover today. And the reason is because I stopped drinking beer over a year ago. Like, as far as my main drink, I usually just do vodka and soda. So I'm drinking like 75% water when I'm drinking.
Right.
And because it's been so long, I had like 3 beers last night and it wrecked me. It just, beer is no joke.
3 beers, man. That's it, huh?
Well, they were like, 2 of them were hazy IPAs and they were a little more stout than I was used to. So I'm a little slow on the uptake today. But probably edit this part out. There's no real reason I should have shared that with anybody. But I want to
say I quit drinking beer like maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I just can't handle it. It's like liquid bread in your body.
It's just so thick and you're just, you can drink a bunch of glasses of water at the end of the night, but if you're not like drinking it throughout, it's just, I'm getting too old for this shit, as Danny Glover would say.
For sure.
That's just like everybody with everything. I mean, it's like you'd stop going to concerts and like going to the concert wrecks you. You stop eating meat and then eating the meat wrecks you. Like, everyone is a creature of routine. And just a quick aside, like I see your waveforms forming at the bottom. I don't see a waveform forming for me.
I see
your waveform.
So
you say a waveform? Okay, then we're all good. I just wanted to confirm that like my wave is formed.
Yeah,
your wave is formed.
Your wave is forming. So I want to start off by saying that my journey into electronic music came pretty late in my life. I was late 20s. And, it started with like your Daft Punk and your Justices, but I liked that stuff, but I always wanted it to be weirder. And I was like, is there weirder stuff out there? And turns out, yes, lots of it. And actually your guys' label was one of the early like Bandcamp labels that I found when I was a budding electronic musician. So this predates Modular. And I actually went down and grabbed these. I got the Bang Bros, the Radiator Grays, and Davey Harms. So I got 41, 42, and 43. And I think
that's old school.
Well beyond that. You have a pretty immense catalog. How many releases do you guys have now, by the way?
I think we hit like 130 recently.
Wow.
Yeah, we're like working on ones that are in the 130s in terms of
that's crazy
catalog numbers.
Yeah. So I found your guys' stuff, before I met my wife and before Modular. So it was, it was like another life ago. So, I mean, these had to have been close to 10 years ago then. So how long have you been doing the label?
This is the 11th year.
Okay. Wow.
So I guess we're at like 10 and a half now, or so. And yeah, I mean, it started off pretty slowly. The first couple of years were just a few releases a year. And then in the more like 2014, 2014 zone, that's when we started to release a lot of stuff. And now we're maybe a little bit slower than we were a couple of years ago.
Before we get too much more into the history, I'm kind of curious, like, is that pandemic and, cassette production related, or is it because you're more discerning and put more into individual releases, or is it because you've been doing it for 10 years and it's just a lot of work?
I would say that the last thing is probably the closest to the truth, but if anything, the pandemic was kind of like, we did more stuff during that because not like the most ever, like not our like peak, but we definitely had a steady one or more releases a month during those couple of years. So yeah, Doug, do you want to elaborate?
I would say it's more like personal life related, that like, I got married this year. We don't live together anymore. It's just been we both moved in the last couple of years.
Wait, you and Max don't live together anymore?
Yeah. It sounded like
it sounded like you said, like, I got married. I got married this year, but we're no longer living together.
Max and I are no longer cohabitating. It's just been kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to put the maximum level of attention that we can put into the thing, and treat every release like the big deal that we want to treat it as. So we've slowed down a little bit in order to give everyone the amount of attention that we think they deserve.
Yeah, right on. So you guys are in Chicago. Are you from Chicago?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're both in Chicago on the north side, and we both grew up in the suburbs.
Okay. I went to Kalamazoo. I went to Western in Kalamazoo for grad school and popped over to Chicago a few times. But yeah, I like that Chicago to, Ann Arbor kind of section of the Midwest and up the coast of the lake, it's pretty.
I would say Cleveland to Ann Arbor to, I thought you were talking about like musically. You were talking about like,
no, I'm just talking about
physically.
Yeah, beautiful,
beautiful zone. But you saying Ann Arbor made me think of like just like the like Midwestern block of like Cleveland, Ann Arbor, Detroit, like Chicago. Releases a lot of like freak music,
Definitely, yeah. I was out in Ann Arbor a few years ago, just before the pandemic, for like this instructor's school, because I teach at an electrical apprenticeship every once in a while, and I just like walked around and found all the record shops and was really delighted to see like just how many like DIY cassettes and stuff were available at all of them. And it seemed like for a pretty small college town, has a pretty vibrant music scene and has for a really long time.
Yeah, like the Wolf Eyes crew, a lot of them kind of originate in Ann Arbor. And our good homie Jim Magus used to live there, who's like a current Chicago guy who is like deep in the history of that kind of like, noise diaspora of Michigan and Chicago and stuff. Right
on. Yeah, when I was out there, I was more like an indie kid. I was in some bands in Kalamazoo, and I found out about the band Lightning Bolt because this band that I was in was opening for them, and I had no idea what the hell was going to happen. And when they started, like that was one of the formative moments that kind of started breaking my brain out of more like, mainstream and digestible, easily digestible music.
And you are not alone in that. I mean, Lightning Bolt have broken many brains. And set many people onto new courses, I'm sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
They've heard a lot of necks from the people in the back trying to see them too.
and the headbanging also hurts the necks.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of pros, but a lot of necks hurt by Lightning Bolt. And wonderful music.
And eardrums. One of the loudest bands I've ever seen is two people. It was nuts. But yeah. So how did you I want to hear the origin story here of the label here. How did that go? Why did you guys start a label? How'd that go?
Doug, this is all you, baby.
Max, I think it would be fun if we trade off every sentence on this. I think
all right,
I'm interested. Okay. I like this.
All right, start. How about not sentence, but like small patch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a fun way to do it.
It could be multiple sentences, you know, yeah.
All right, so Max and I, we were both students at Northwestern University. I was hosting a party at my house, and Max showed up, and we became best friends in about 2 hours. I had him cornered in my bedroom, playing him my guitar, and we like started a band a couple weeks later. And while we were at Northwestern, we were very heavily involved in the radio station, playing all kinds of music. We had a show together where we did all video game music.
Oh, nice.
Which was very fun. And then we graduated and moved in together. And
then at that point, we were in Chicago as opposed to Evanston, and we were thinking about starting a new band and, you know, thinking about new projects. And because our previous like rock band that we were in basically would, I mean, like one of our band members lived in LA or moved to LA where he grew up. So we're starting a new band. We started this band called Goodwill Smith with our dear friend Natalie, who also went to Northwestern, but we didn't know her at the time. And we met her just through what I would call the local like DIY noise kind of scene. But our first inklings of that, essentially, like, you know, we were like meeting people in that world, you know, actively. And we started this band, and we started Hausu Mountain because we wanted to release that band's music and the music of another project of ours called The Big Ship, which was primarily helmed by Doug and our friend Aaron, who was our roommate at the time. So both The Big Ship and Goodwill Smith were the early, like, kind of like, you know, reasons to release music essentially on our own.
Okay. Yeah, I also got a Goodwill Smith cassette when I ordered these. You guys just like included it in the
amazing.
Yeah.
Bonus.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time I was working at Thrill Jockey Records.
Oh, cool.
My job was basically to be like multiple people's like helper. So I was working in many departments and kind of just learning a lot of the different facets of like how to run a label. I was working really closely with my friend Eric, who used to run an incredible label called Immune Recordings. Not so much a cassette label, but an LP label. He released a lot of pulse emitter stuff, and really is like the reason why we have a very good relationship with Daryl, and like we're able to like set up shows with him when we were very unknown. And he taught me a lot, and you know, Max and I just kind of decided to treat it like it was super serious from the beginning. Like every single release, like making a big press list and like keeping on getting more and more writers, and like not you know, not treating like cassettes like they were just like these tiny little things, but trying to present it the same way that like independent labels were presenting their albums. Mm-hmm. And really just like being persistent was what we did for many years, just like continuing to grow the list, continuing to grow the people that were ordering from us, and just really trying to do it always just the two of us, and have as few external parties involved as we possibly could.
Yeah, and I would, yeah, it's a real hustle. And in terms of like A&R, so to speak, like finding people to work with and, you know, gathering like artists that, you know, we feel represent our label, almost like 100%, you know, maybe 90% of that comes from people that we are close with just from playing shows with them across the U.S. and our tours with Goodwill Smith. That was definitely like a big, you know, like way to expand our friend network and meet people that like are aligned with our, you know, our zone, so to speak. And of course, we also have fielded like demos from people online and met people that way. But that's like a far like smaller branch of it. So we definitely keep it in the family and keep it pretty, you know, like close to our like friend group, and
right, yeah.
also continue to work with artists like over and over if we can, if they're still down, like we just keep it rolling, you know?
Yeah.
There are a lot of artists that are on like album number like 3 through 6 on the label, which it's a real pleasure to be able just to work with the people repeatedly and have like our friendship and workship relationships entwined such that when we're texting, it's like, oh, like funny meme. Oh, like what are you doing on Thursday? I got a show. Like, oh, like you gotta finish your master, dude. Like, what's up with that? Like, and like that's the way we prefer to keep it. Just to keep it fun for us. Like, it's not as much fun to be working with someone that we're not comfortable with, don't know very well, feel a little bit like shy around, timid around, or like not necessarily have the same expectations, or I don't know.
Yeah, that brings up something that I don't know if you caught it, but I had Andrew from Beacon Sound on last week at the time of this recording, and we talked a lot about. I get a lot of emails from people, over the span of a year asking, like, hey, I'm trying to release this album, and I've had people say, like, I've been working on this album for 15 years, and because they've been working on, anywhere from that to a year or whatever, but either way, when people have a finished album, they've put a lot of work into it and they want people to hear it. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask, like, hey, how do you get on a label? And most of the time I tell them that right now, like, you could make a little dream list of who you'd like and send stuff out, but I would just like kind of go forth with having it in your head that you're going to self-release it and do it, because the amount of time that you put into trying to find a label is going to be really big, especially if you have a day job and everything. And that's time that could take away from your creative, process. And sorry, I'm really rambling, but the cap on this, the reason I bring this up now is because, like you guys said, it's mostly like your little friend group, kind of a circular, like a community almost. And that's what I tell them. A lot of these smaller labels, like they started them because they couldn't find a label, and then they started releasing their own stuff, and then started releasing their friends' stuff. So it's going to be really hard to get their attention, and it's nothing personal, and that's just kind of how it goes. So like, embed yourself in a scene or start your own thing, but would you guys have any advice?
100%.
Well, I would say that the idea of quote unquote getting on a label really means anything anymore at all, and it's like you were saying, it makes so much more sense for you to have control over your own art and self-release it, get it out there. And then that's how you start having people notice you, listen to you, want to become your friend, and say, oh, like maybe I'll play a show with this person and meet them in real life. Like the only way that you can get in to any scene or even just like have a connection outside of your laptop screen, you know what I mean, is to like release your stuff, start playing shows, and like get out there, because that's like how magic happens and how friends come together and stuff like that.
Exactly. Totally agree. Yeah.
100%. Just meeting people, like whether that's online or in real life. In real life is what we did, and that's maybe more speaking to like our place in our generation. But it's like, go to lots of shows, talk to people, play as many shows as you can, play shows in the towns that are drivable or busable to your city, meet people, try to help people, play shows on Twitch, like join the Discords, be active. The process is a process that is a many years long process. Yes. A lot of people want to like make a thing and be able to like, grow their project exponentially really quickly. And the fact of the matter is that, even when we're working with people for like the first time, it's like we can help to grow their thing, but we're only like growing it. It's like one more like thing for them to have amongst many things. Like your one album, even if you spent so many years working on it and you're so proud of it, is just one thing in what should be like a life practice. And part of that life practice is also being a member of a community, whether that's in real life or online. And you know, for the most part, when you're dealing with this kind of super experimental music, the majority of the people that are going to be your fans, for lack of a better word, are your friends and other practitioners. And in order to, like, you know, you have to respect those people and engage with those people in order for them to respect and engage with you.
Yeah, I think to kind of like just like build upon what you said, especially going back to the you know, it's a many years process. You know, I understand the excitement of having a finished record, especially if you're very, very happy with it. You really want the world to hear it, and there's just no real feasible and actually like beneficial way to fast track that process. And again, like to go into into a community and, like you said, try to help people and stuff, like make sure that you're going into it with the intentions of, I want to join a community. I want to network, make connections so I can get my shit out there, because that's like the fringe benefit of becoming a part of a community.
Well, and those people are instantly recognized, and it's just like, oh, this guy's a turd. Like,
right.
This person is
just be cool. Don't be a turd.
Yeah. You know, and I think that, like, what you said about no matter what the album sounds like, even if it's some kind of, you know, polished masterpiece that, you know, elevates the genre it is trying for and is totally original, unique thing, which I just said all that like does not happen, first of all.
Right.
Second of all, even if that's true, if you have no one that's there to rep you and say, oh yeah, like, I love this artist, I am familiar with them, and like we're homies, check it out. You know, if you don't have like that organic network of people that want to talk about your music and contextualize it for other people and say, I played a show with this person. Oh, I know that they've released an album on this label, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, that's the kind of thing that is almost essential, or is essential in my opinion, to have even the craziest masterpiece like acknowledged as such. You know what I mean?
Totally. Absolutely.
It's like the proof is not in the pudding. You know what I mean? Like, the pudding can be like dank as hell, but if no one cares about the pudding and has never, like, doesn't know how to contextualize it, it's rarely gonna, like, you know, make that person suddenly be like, okay, this person's a genius.
Yeah.
And forever they're going to be successful. They're going to get on Warp Records like tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like that, like that never happens, you know?
Yeah. I think, oh God, I lost it. I had something that I think was good, but it just like, God, what was it? Well, hopefully it'll come back soon, but, God damn it. My ADD brain's not going to let me. Yeah, there you go.
I can give like a parting advice word. Like, it's just like, again, take it slow. Think of it all as, like, you know, building your community and like trying to be active in your local community. And if you don't live in a place where that's possible, your internet community, join Discords, be active on these places, and try to meet people and try to understand all these different kinds of music that people are expressing, and like treat each thing as like something to slowly build upon, and don't get discouraged when, you know, there aren't a lot of people checking it out. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. And like, persistence is a very good quality to have.
Definitely.
And do it because you love it, not because you want attention.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just turned 39, and starting at 18, really starting at 12, I began my quest to become a rock star. You know, like, that was the goal for the whole time. And I've done many different things and had, you know, different levels of whatever you could call success. but yeah, it took me until, 35 to start this podcast. This is by far the most successful thing that I've done. But it's still, like that thing of success and like what you want out of something. I feel like you should get your mind right with that before you get too far in there, because you don't want it to be, you don't want to be a turd, because I think oftentimes you can turn into a turd when you really are like on the self-promotion tip and stuff. But yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. I was kind of like just like almost like a rephrasing of what you guys have been saying for the past few minutes. Is like, it's amazing with even how Bandcamp exists, and there's you can record an album in your room and then upload it from your room and have it on iTunes. Like we have this because of the internet, just like crazy access for way more people. But word of mouth is still like the most important thing for people to pay attention to what you're doing. Somebody has to vouch for it, and and that's really hard. And you're not going to get somebody big to vouch for it on your first release if you don't have a good CV built up to this point. So like you were saying, Doug, it's like these small steps.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, honestly, I feel badly for people that might be starting now, because 10 years ago there was so much of this this very rich blog ecosystem where we could get people's attention. That was like, I don't know. I remember one that was like, you send people cassettes and they like pair a beer with your cassette. And like, there was just lots of these blogs that people were actively checking out, and like was a good avenue for this kind of like very just like peer-to-peer networking dash like promotion that like could help you sell your 100 tapes. And a lot of that's gone now. And it's more like, who do you follow on Twitter? Like, can I get the attention of this YouTuber? It's a little bit weirder.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
I definitely agree with that. I then that kind of makes like that leads me to something I wanted to ask you guys about, because like I have such deep respect for people like you who do what you do. You're keep like, thanks to Bandcamp and people like you guys, there's still, even though it is hard to get in there and cut through the noise, there's still like a place for us, because Spotify isn't really the place for us, and I'm wondering, like, with the kind of that, there was like a weird heyday when the internet like peaked as far as like musical promotion and like actually being able to get cool stuff happening with your music. And then it got super saturated instantly, and then it lost its efficacy. So like currently, what's the approach? What do you guys do to promote a release, and how do you try to get your label, people who don't know about it yet aware of it and whatnot?
I think that there are like numerous avenues that might not be as obvious to someone that is, thinking about releasing a record, and the milestones or the touchstones that make it a success outside of sales are things like reviews in notable websites, or, like being mentioned on a YouTube review, like Doug was saying. Those things might seem like milestones to a lot of people that are looking in on the system, like through the window, but also for people that receive those things, that receive a review or so, like whatever, that might be enough for them. And they might say, okay, cool, that was a success. Like, I got some clout or whatever. But that's just like the very tip of the iceberg. And there's so much more that actually equates to real, like, organic and holistic, like what I would describe as success. And a lot of that comes through social media, like through Twitter and Instagram and stuff, where people can comment and actively talk about and be involved in the life of a piece of art outside of maybe like institutional perception, so to speak. And also Discord is a big one that's definitely been like, I mean, in some ways Discord is different because the people in the server know that they're there for the thing. They're already fans, so to speak. that creates an even like kind of like more beneficial and nice community where people are all already friends, so to speak. They're already oriented around one subject or one label or one artist, and like it's easy to just create connections there. But also just, you know, posting about stuff and having it not be into a void, have people discuss it.
Definitely.
You know, talk to you about it. Doug, do you want to like add to this? Like,
yeah, I would say like those things are all super important, but I think that the most important thing is the direct communication, that like getting in touch with our customer base through the Bandcamp messaging platform. Just like the fact that I can just like, when a new album comes out, send an email to every single person that has ever downloaded any of our things.
Mm-hmm.
Like after that email comes out is when we see the biggest spike of clicks and purchases 100%. And the MailChimp newsletter to a smaller degree, but is the same sort of thing. Like those are
I just signed up for MailChimp sort of yesterday. I'm so mad at everything, like business wise. Like I'm just all like the success of this show is all the foundation of that. It's all built on the fact that there just wasn't a weekly modular podcast, and then modular was getting very popular. Like I just right time, right place. I've been very perplexed as to how I can grow it any more than I have, because I've just been like on Instagram and then having cool people come on and share that on Instagram. And, you know, it's just like, it's such a Pandora's box. Like, how the hell does any of this work? Please pardon the interruption, but I just wanted to take a minute to let everyone out there listening know that I am currently building like a workshop / course for modular music, recording in the studio and in the field, different mixing approaches with modular. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, you can DM me or you can send me a message at podmodcast@gmail.com. So we can do the lessons via Skype or Zoom if you are not in the area. But if you are in, you know, the Tacoma, Seattle, or Olympia area, we might be able to find some time to do in-person lessons. So yeah, once again, if you're interested in that, send me a DM on Instagram or an email at podmodcast@gmail.com. This week's episode is brought to you, as always, by Patchworks Seattle. Great synth shop, and they have some exciting news. They have the new Korg ARP 2600 semi-modular synthesizer that has been modernized in the newest 2600M model with features like MIDI, a smaller form factor, and a re-engineered lush spring reverb. And it comes with a custom Rode case as well, so that's a pretty big deal, and that is available at Patchworks. And something else about Patchworks that I have utilized many times is it is a great place to bring in your vintage synthesizers and music gear on consignment, or you can do some trade for, you know, store credit. You can shop the great selection of used gear where hidden gems and great deals can be found. I have found so much cool stuff in that used section. Patchworks is located in the heart of the Wallingford neighborhood in Seattle. You can stop by the showroom to play vintage synthesizers and shop new and used gear. It's not only the best synth shop, you know, for Eurorack and everything else in Seattle, but it also has a ton of live events, from in-store showroom sessions with local artists to in-depth workshops and classes. You can visit the Seattle showroom to meet all these people and see, you know, can I get into a class? When's the next event? Or you can head over to patchworks.com. That's patchwerks.com. And here's another cool piece of information. If you are shopping online at Patchworks, free shipping for orders over $75. And then one last thing, they are updating their showroom hours. So Patchworks will be now open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from noon to 7 p.m. and Sunday from noon to 6 p.m. So it will be closed Monday through Wednesday. Once again, that's patchwerks.com, patchwerks.
Well, I would say that like one thing I would want to like say as a disclaimer or like an asterisk here is that when we talk about things like promotion and reach and like quote unquote success or popularity, all of that really only like matters as a marker of the fact that people are having fun and enjoying what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's important to learn early too, I think.
Like that's like we don't give a shit about numbers or popularity or any of that. Like we're just happy that people are listening to what we do and are pleased by it and entertained and you know, maybe have their minds expanded or you know, change their perspective on art or music or whatever like that. Right. That's like that's the only thing that matters at all, you know?
Yeah.
And you can say that maybe the numbers indicate that more people are experiencing that, but also maybe not, you know, maybe people, you know, like it's hard to tell whether someone that finds our music on a Spotify playlist is like really like stoked and, you know, seeing it as some kind of mind expanding cool thing, or it's just like some other domino in the chain, you know?
Yeah. Well, and on to, like, so
wait, Doug.
Yeah. I think that what Max was getting at is that like our core interest here is not like getting Pitchfork reviews or like getting things on Fantano or like any of that stuff. Like our core interest is releasing music that we love from people that we love that moves both of our like heads and hearts and butts. Like we want music that like moves our bodies and our minds. And we've learned over the last decade like how to deal with the sort of like music industry machine in a way that like is the least grody to us in an effort to try and give these artists that we love the maximum platform that we can with the time and resources that we have. Like,
Definitely.
We love it when like the things get a big review or like an interview feature or whatever, because we know that more people will get tuned into it. But like all of this is just like stuff that we engage with because of like our love of the music. Like it's not like the love of the publicity or the love of like reading other people's opinions about it. And like all that stuff is lovely and nice. And like we are happy to engage in that world. But the music part is the soul.
Yeah.
And I think some like, and the world that we kind of operate in, right? Like not just the modular world, but like the greater experimental kind of, weirder electronic music as far as like what, the mainstream would, labels go. There really isn't opportunity for rock stardom or anything. So like you guys wouldn't be doing this for almost 11 years if those were the reasons you were doing it, because you would switch lanes or something if that's what you were looking for. And I think that translates to, the community and audiences and makes it more special. And what I've noticed is, there's more and more stuff coming out, more and more people making music. There's probably more bands right now than there ever were, at any point in history. But I think, so you would think with this like access to the entire world, I'm sitting in Tacoma, Washington. You guys are in two different parts of Chicago, like we can access this world. You'd think that would make for way bigger audiences. But I think what it does is it actually makes for like really small, but devoted audiences. Like they're in it because it's like, this is my thing. Like I'm sure there are a bunch of, Hausu Mountain heads out there, like after listening to these cassettes, like these 3 cassettes had a direct impact on how I viewed, the landscape of the, like kind of the area of music I wanted to get into. And they influenced my music,
that makes us so happy.
Yeah. Sick. And that's like, I think that's so much more, special. Like I'd release an album. I remember my first full-length electronic album. I was very proud of it, still am, and it got an excellent review in Seattle's The Stranger by Dave Siegel, who's like the guy who
we know him. He's a homie.
He's a great dude. And
he's been at it longer than any of us.
Totally. I really want to see if he would come on the show, because like I owe a lot to him just by him kind of lending me his clout. But when I saw it, like, and I'm only saying this to make a point. I'm not trying to humble brag, maybe like 10%, but he had said that album was, you know, one of the best electronic albums to come out of Seattle in the last 5 years, you know, which a lot of electronic music comes out of Seattle. So that was my first like full release. And I thought that marked the beginning of, I'm on my way, you know? And while I still love that review, and it's still like, I still like to read it every like year or two. I didn't see a big uptick in numbers, or, you know, it didn't really have much of an effect on the actual metrics. And, you know, so as I was looking at these metrics over years of releasing albums and really putting the grind in, I would be very, very disheartened by a small amount of listens. But I've got to this point now where it's like, if 50 people listen to my album, I'm pretty sure that the audience that, you know, we work with and everything, like those 50 people are going to have a way more like intimate and, you know, attentive experience with that than if it was, you know, 5,000 plays on Spotify because of a playlist or whatever, you know, like you guys said, like, who knows how much they vibed with it. So like the numbers really like it's so nebulous. Like you can't even really think about it, you know? And, yeah.
And I would say that when you were saying that Bandcamp and the democratizing like aspects of internet music culture have yielded more bands than ever, you know, releasing more music than ever. I think that no matter what, everyone only has like one like life to live, you know, and like one like couple hours maybe to listen to music a day. So it's like, you know, there might be an infinite ocean of stuff, but unless you're like sitting in front of your computer, listening to, you know, what Rate Your Music is saying is the best stuff, 50 albums, you know, or something like in like a week or whatever. There are heads like that like, you know, listen to music straight all day, every day.
Indexically.
Yeah. Indexically, like cataloging everything they ever hear, building their personal catalogs in their brains. Then there are others that are like, I only have an hour in the car to listen to something, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
That's way more common. So it's like they can only access so much stuff, and it might be, you know, it's probably not going to be some noise record, you know. I mean, it is in many cases, but I'm talking about in the pie chart of all listeners, it's probably not going to be that, you know. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be thankful. Yeah.
Totally. And I think I think also, thank you guys, by the way, for having this like candid conversation about this, because, you know, I think a lot of people are very perplexed about how this all works and everything. But yeah, it's like you learn this lesson that, you know, that Max was just saying, like you know, adjusting expectations as far as like what you think should, or what you think you want versus like what is possible. And fuck, I had another thing and I lost it again, you guys. Jesus. 3 beers? Really? 3 beers?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Just pause for a second. You need to acknowledge that it's gone.
Yeah, but that means that means I gotta edit it, and it already takes so long. Like I'm pretty punk rock when I approached my
you're a punk rock podcaster.
That's right.
Punk rock modular synth podcast.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, punk rock is my nice way of saying a little lazy, but
no, I got you. I understand. Yeah. It's like punk time. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But no, there was something else that I felt like I was really building to there that involved you guys. And
you were talking about tempering expectations about, your.
Oh, right.
Here's something I want to say if we're in here too, that like, there's like probably 250,000 people that are like as talented as Tim Hecker, but there's like only one Tim Hecker like playing every festival. And there's like no rhyme or reason why he's the Tim Hecker and you're not the Tim Hecker. You just have to embrace like the like chaos of it all too. Like you could be making amazing stuff, and there's also like a luck component too. That like there's one Tim Hecker, even though there's 250,000 Tim Hecker. Quality teams. Like
I don't want it to seem like Tim Hecker is catching strays here. I think Doug is more complimenting him because
I like Tim Hecker. Tim Hecker's perfectly good. I'm just saying like he's one. It's like here's someone that's an ambient musician that's making very good music that I think that a lot of people that we get demos from are making similar stuff, and sometimes of similar quality, often of worse quality, but there's at least 250,000 people in the world that are doing it.
And I think
like those 250,000 people are not getting that level of booking, press attention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's a great perspective, I think, for anyone out there listening who's kind of like, taking all this in, what we're talking about, because it's on their mind. Like that is a really important perspective to have, that like don't like take it personally and don't get like down or mean to yourself. Like maybe I'm not good enough or whatever. But I do remember what I was going to say, like with like the time, there's only so many hours in the day. I do a weekly podcast, an hour long. And, I make all these videos and I make all this music, and I mostly not mostly, but a huge part of why I wanted to start the podcast was to also just like try to promote my stuff. And then I would get really bummed because I'm like, oh man, my podcast gets good numbers, but my releases and videos don't. And then I'm like, it just struck me. I'm like, how much Tim do you expect fucking people, like if they're taking me in for an hour and I'm doing these big, long, rambly things like I am right now and not editing it out and stuff, are they really going to take it's like, and it's not personal. It's just like you have an attention span as a human, and entertainment is a small portion of what you can devote, that to. And I'm just waxing.
I would agree with you
here.
Wait, and just to tie a ribbon on this, thinking about Doug's comments regarding Tim Hecker, I want to say that Tim Hecker and any artist in his tier of visibility and success also have done what we were just describing before, which is
busted their ass.
A ton of work and released dozens of albums and know tons of people because they played shows with them, and know labels because they've released their music, and there's a word of mouth network about, among people. So maybe the first pebble in the pond is like luck, so to speak. Maybe for you, that was like your Dave Siegel like review. Like that's the first pebble. But you have to build on that and not think that that's going to be the only thing. Like
totally.
The Tim Heckers of the world have worked with dozens of different communities, and that's why they're on like the big, Cafe Oto festival or something, I mean, like bigger than that. Tim Hecker probably plays fucking like, I don't know. Does he play Coachella? No, not like that, but
I'm sure similar ones. Yeah. I'm sure he's like, there's like a chill out tent at Primavera Sound.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
I'm just using him as like a totem of like,
no, you're right. I know.
It makes like very experimental music, but it's still like, very known amongst people. It's like if you talk to someone who's like,
OPN or whatever.
I was thinking that as well. Yeah.
Like, Like again, like busted his buns working really hard. But like not everyone else who busted their buns working really hard got in that position. Just,
I think
just
also
try hard, be nice, and
and don't expect
try
anything.
to build a lily pond.
Right,
try to build a whole lily pond.
Yeah, totally. I think also we like. I'm assuming you guys are close to my age. Well, I guess I'm getting to the age where that might be kind of insulting. I'm
33. Doug is 35.
34, going on 35.
Okay. So we're close, but I still think you guys fall under this umbrella to where like for me growing up, there was Behind the Music and there was, MTV interviews and everything. And there was, there's a mystique to rock stardom, and like people didn't get, we didn't have interviews like long form like this, where people were really candid. So everything kind of just like seemed truncated and instant, and like, yeah, we made this record and then we became the hugest fucking thing in the world. And it's like, so I think, a generation of people, I'll speak for myself because I was a bit dense as a kid. I thought that all I had to do is get really good at music and then people would find me. And that has never been how it fucking goes. So like, that kind of goes back to this work ethic thing. You got to fucking grind constantly.
I mean, I'm thinking about like, if we saw a real behind the music of bands, as far back as rock music existed, like, fucking Jimi Hendrix or Led Zeppelin, like they didn't catapult to instant fame. Like they probably, we know that they put in tons of work. And I think of like, to use a more modern example, like, I don't know, like in the early 90s when like new metal was kicking off and like bands like Korn and like, like all of their ilk, they were suddenly thrust into a national spotlight instantly. And it's something that came out of nowhere. But like they were also putting in crazy work, and they're like Bakersfield, California,
bands, right? Yeah,
like,
and they'd been in that band had existed for close to 10 years before this happened in some cases. Like can't speak
exactly,
directly to Korn, but yeah.
That was a really unique time in music.
It was the best time
in
the
90s, early 2000s, when like, there's a lot of CD power.
Yeah.
You could buy the CDs everywhere. People were still buying them. And that was a time where it's like what you're talking about. Like a band could just be like
instantly be catapulted. Yeah.
Oh, we need 15 grunge bands for our label. Like, let's find them.
Totally.
Like, and like now people like, of course, like what Max and I do is not in this area at all. We are like a tiny little like runoff stream from this. Like we're not competing with major labels in any way. But if you're talking about the major label stratosphere, like we are now, like, people are now competing with the entire history of popular recorded music. That like these major labels are going to be promoting the classic rock as much as they're promoting the new music, if not even more, because it's just like this giant IP that's just generating income.
Right. Yeah.
Why do I need to find the new band this year when we're still going to sell X copies of Dark Side of the Moon?
Right. And also there's going to be movies made. There's going to be movies made about Queen, about Elton John,
right?
actively. So there's cross-pollination where, like Doug was saying, like, Atlantic Records probably fucks with Queen like 30 times more than they would, like, whoever they would sign, to be their new,
Yeah, that Elvis movie was a real piece
what we're getting
at
is if there are any podcast listeners that can fund making a movie, Max and I are both very good actors and are happy to play ourselves.
I want to make a short film. Maybe I should come out to Chicago and we should make some weird shit.
Why stop there? Like we can have this be a double VHS Titanic.
Fuck yeah, dude! Hell yeah. Well, this is flying by, and we haven't really talked a whole lot about Hausu specifically, but I hope you guys are okay with that. But I do want to like kind of shift.
Oh
towards that.
This has been fun. Yeah.
Cool. But I do want to shift towards that because I want to say one of the things that I really, really fucking love about your label, I think you guys are really fucking good at this, is you have created and you've created and cultivated and like tended to a very, very specific little universe that is your universe, from the artwork to the type of music that you release to the videos. And like, there's a level of humor that's almost kind of like post Tim and Eric kind of, and
word.
Yeah. I just, I was trying to formulate a question with that, but yeah, I feel like that I love that aspect. And, I was just wondering if you guys could speak to that, because I know it's intentional. It's way too like obvious and well constructed to not be intentional.
Doug, do you want to start with this?
I don't really think it's like intentional. It's not like Max and I have like a meeting where we're like, okay, like what character do we add to the Hausu universe? Like, it needs more rainbow squiggles this time. Like, I don't know. It's not like that it's just more about like our like core interests and values kind of colliding. That like, I mean, you talk about Tim and Eric. We love Tim and Eric, and like, I don't know, I see Tim and Eric as being part of the same sort of lineage as these like. It's a little blurry. I can't quite see what we're looking at.
Terrible tattoo
of Tim and Eric.
What is it?
It's the cover. It's the cover of season 3 DVD. So it's like already a really shitty piece of art. And then I had my friend who was just starting tattooing do it, and it's so bad. It is like my worst tattoo, but it's like so bad that it makes me laugh. And it's Tim and Eric, so it kind of works. But
me and Doug have met Tim Heidecker and recorded some music with him.
Oh,
it was actually over 10 years ago, and that came about totally randomly. And like we ended up on one of his solo records, just
nice.
In me and Doug, and actually the band that we had mentioned at the very beginning of this, our college rock band, was involved in recording with him. And it's not like we would call him like our homie. Like he probably wouldn't even recognize us in the streets, but we reached out to him, and he worked with us just because we were such huge fans, you know.
That's
so
awesome.
It's like that kind of thing happens, I guess, you know.
Yeah,
like
I've been on office hours with
your idols.
Yeah,
there you go.
And I've had Doug Pound on the show, so
Sick.
So yeah.
Oh, amazing.
We love Doug Pound. Yeah, he goes hard as hell.
Yeah, I think. But it's like we're talking about having him on again to promote the new season of Pound House, and I'm hoping I can get Brent to join as well, but we'll see.
Hell yeah.
Well, kind of good. I wanted to. There was one more thing. Yeah, but
we were talking about.
I'll bring us right back around.
I was kind of getting at, is it like, you know, Tim and Eric to us, and like the movie, like the Holy Mountain, like exist on this psychedelic continuum in which like Super Nintendo games and the Grateful Dead and noise music and techno and like all these things can like be a giant beautiful rainbow and are all relational. And it's like if you it's like the Hausu Mountain aesthetic is more of just like a tapestry of our musical interests. And I think that Max can speak more about the artwork because he's the main producer of the artwork. But then, you know, outside designers work with us, and like our artists are pretty sure to make sure that they are kind of part of the plan. I don't know.
Yeah. I do want to hear about the artwork because that was going to be a specific question, but I just wanted to add one cherry to the top of what I was saying. Because like what you were saying, Doug, like, it's not like we have a meeting and it's like, we kind of like decide, okay, we have to do it this way. But I think something that I think is obvious to your audience or to your fan base, but it was obvious to me, is that it's exactly that. Like you guys are being yourself and you're doing what you want to do. You're doing what interests you. You're making what you want to make. And you just hope that someone else out there resonates with it. And I think that's like all you can really do as an artist. And that translates to me, like through your aesthetic and everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I think just to slightly modify what you say, I don't even hope that other people relate to it. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like I do care in that I want people to be entertained, like I said before. But I do not think I don't say, please let someone like connect with
totally.
This
no,
one,
no, you're putting it out there like I love this, and if somebody else
this
does,
is just
awesome.
me. Yeah, exactly. It's like this is just what I wanted to do. It's just me, and it's like it's not like I am very pleased when people resonate with it, but it's not, the goal isn't to make them resonate with it for me. It's more like to put a chunk of myself out there that is unfiltered and represents my desires and my interests. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and if there's like a misstep, if there's something I release that like doesn't resonate with people, I like fuck them. You know what I mean? Like I don't mean to say that in a confrontational way. I'm just saying like I don't care. You know?
Yeah, it's not
the next
for
thing
them.
is going to happen.
Doesn't matter.
The next thing's going to happen in like, you know, a couple days. So there's going to be plenty of stuff that people can maybe relate to. And okay, and then really quick regarding the artwork, I'm like not really trained as like a conventional artist, and I can't like draw or paint or any of that. So like all of my artwork is collage oriented and pretty like detailed Photoshop collage that I kind of think of as like mosaics typically in the style that you might think of as the Hausu Mountain art which is like pixel art primarily that is collaged. My goal is to make like something that, you know, might have appeared on like a Super Nintendo game art, like a game box or something, you know, or something that could have appeared on like a sci-fi novel cover, you know, maybe like a different aesthetic, obviously, but something that contains that much detail to the point that it might, you know, like open up a little visual world that is separate or complementary to the music, but that like stands alone and like is something you could look at while you're on acid and watch it like ripple and go
I was
crazy,
just gonna say, know? Dude, they're the 16-bit stained glass windows in the LSD church, you know? Like
thank you so much. I don't think you could have summarized it better. Oh yeah, the Dion tape actually has stained glass and like is like
actually has stained glass and a cathedral.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. I mean, like that's definitely the goal. And the reason why I am so drawn to 16-bit artwork is, I mean, in some ways it's because that was an early visual language that like blew my mind. You know, when I was growing up, I wouldn't describe it as nostalgia because I don't think about it and go, I wish I were 6 again. I think about, I look at it and go, oh my God, it's like still so sick looking.
It stayed with you. Yeah. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, in the same way that like a lot of people are attracted to modular synthesis, in that like you're using a more old school method to engage with technology, which can yield more interesting results. Like technological limitations, 16-bit video games, because they were working with these limitations, are often more beautiful than modern video games because more attention had to be put into the world creation versus just like plopping in a preset or plopping in a model. It's so much more homespun. And I also want to put a little asterisk, which I think helps makes our conversation go full circle. And that in the beginning of the conversation, you were talking about like how your electronic music sort of blossoming was a little late to the game. But I want to posit that like almost everyone in our generation's like exposure to electronic music and formative electronic music upbringing is through playing video games.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, Max and I have said this like repeatedly, that like those are a lot of our earliest sort of touchstones and like earliest exposures to so many genres of music that we couldn't have even vocalized when we were that young.
I used to like
ambient, earliest techno, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I would make separate save files on Final Fantasy VII, like just to have like a little point where I could go back and listen to whatever the song was that I liked. And then I would just get to the point where like I couldn't get in a fight or anything and nothing would happen in the game. And I would just let it play and I'd just listen to the soundtrack. And I still love that soundtrack.
I mean, FF7 is one of the best soundtracks ever. And I'm like,
it's amazing.
Once you leave Midgar on disc 1, you can't hear the Midgar jams anymore. You can't hear You can't hear Under the Rotting Pizza, which is like one of the sickest tracks, like in, you know that track?
Yeah.
Sickest track. Yeah. Like,
dude, I want to do like a fucking doom stoner metal version of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that would
in my mind, that song is very allied to like the underground Mario, like
totally.
You know, it's like it's like using the thick bass line as like a marker of like the sewer, the seedy like underground area, you know, what I mean?
And just like, crushing shit to make it sound fucking fuzzy and
And the version of that that's in the remake is also sick as fuck. If you haven't heard that,
I've played and beat it. I really want the second one out. But
I know, man. I know. Still. Same. Yeah, it's true.
Well, we are at an hour, and I don't want to take up too much more of your guys' time. I could talk about all of this shit all day. But before we get off of the air here, is there anything that you guys wanted to scream from the modular mountaintops?
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, so thank you, Jim. If you liked our conversation and are looking for some Hausu Mountain artists that are more modularly focused, check out Norman W. Long. Check out Long Distance Poison. Brett Nocky, who also has a new album out.
Brett's been on the show
elsewhere. Yeah, Brett is a old friend, deep Chicago friend.
Is Ged on some of your stuff?
Check out M. Geddes, Gengras, and check out Quick Sales. Those are our most predominantly modular artists. We work with tons of other people, mostly in the electronic realm, but sometimes it's just like a prog rock album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's some jazz. Really just like just trying to keep things, like Max has said, just like in between fun and challenging. Head, heart, and body.
Love it.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it's always
cheers.
Fun to
Much love.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you guys have like 10 more minutes for a Patreon bonus episode where I ask fun questions? All right, that's our episode. Thank you so much to Max and Doug for coming on the show. Also, thank you for coming back to Podular Modcast, or if this is your first time, welcome. One more shout out to the Patreon subscribers. Really appreciate you. That is, the primary thing keeping the show alive. I could not do the podcast in the current capacity without the Patreon, so thank you. And if you would like to help keep the LEDs blinking over here at PodMod, head over to patreon.com/Podular Modcast. Thank you to Patchworks, After Later Audio, and Novation for their support of PodMod. I think that's about all I got for you. Oh yeah, if you're interested in taking some remote lessons with me, hit me up in the DMs or email me at podmodcast@gmail.com. This week's secret word is Garlandia. Like a garland, but Garlandia. Until next week.